Welcome to NFL World, where the NFL starts and ends. The big question, I think, has been for the last several days, has been who is going to start at quarterback for the Washington Commanders. As for the last 14 weeks or so, or since week 6, I should say. So I guess it's 11 weeks. It has been Taylor Heineke. Well, the decision was made that Carson Wentz will start. Heineke was pulled in the game against the 49ers, which I just don't think was fair to him. The 49ers are a great defensive football team, and Washington's not a good offensive team. But they do have weapons, and so they should not be messed with. But the problem that they have is the things that Heineke does well is not necessarily the things that the Commanders do well. And this is where it gets interesting. Because you hear coaches say, we got to find an identity. And like, you have a veteran quarterback. That should be your identity. That's not how this works. Every year, your team has to get an identity. If it's run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, and then an occasional pass, that's a big thing. Only does an occasional pass work so well. Like, you're seeing that now with the Titans. They want to run the ball with Derrick Henry, who we will get to in a moment. But they know they can't throw the ball as good as they did last year when they had A.J. Brown. They trade away A.J. Brown, they lose Julio Jones, or they don't re-sign Julio Jones. And you just don't have anyone that can get those number one routes open, and that just makes it a lot difficult on your quarterback. Makes it much more difficult on your quarterback. For Heineke, he's a gunslinger. He wants to throw the ball, and a lot of times that works. But there's times where he just doesn't he will just throw up a ball and he misses his target. He gets intercepted, or best bet, incomplete. That's just, you question it sometimes. But Wentz is going to start. Wentz has not started since week 6 with a broken finger. He is now going to play 11 weeks later. That's the story on that. Now, according to the title of the video, we're going to talk about the Cardinals, and specifically their offensive struggles. Now, this happens because their offense, they're on their third quarterback. You lose Kyler Murray, tears his ACL. Obviously, he can't play the remainder of the year. Colt McCoy, you're a veteran, he gets hurt. So you put in Trace McSorley, who's never started a game. And his first game he faces is against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Tom Brady. What I took from that game was both these teams are awful in the whole scheme of things. As in, both these teams don't score at all. And when they do, they're very streaky. As in, it just seems that they struggle. I don't know why they struggle, but they struggle. And it became prevalent on the Cardinals had a drive in overtime. They put Hopkins on one side of the field. They put all the other receivers on the other side of the field. Instead of motioning one of the wide receivers and try to take the safety away, they put DeAndre Hopkins on a corner and a safety. He's not going to win that matchup. Not because he's not a good player, but because it's really hard to win that matchup consistently. And if you do, it has to be a good ball. Neither of those two things happened. That's the concern if you are the Arizona Cardinals. There's a lot of mistakes, you don't score enough points, your defense is holding on for dear life, and that's all they can do. Except you're not gonna make it to the playoffs this year. Keim is yeah, Steve Keim, your general manager, he's has taken an extended leave of absence for health concerns. They have no idea if he's coming back or not. There's a question now if Kingsbury is going to be fired, though I see that's unlikely because of the contract. But if there's anything that has to be proven, it is deserving that he deserves to be fired. He's not been good this year. And maybe that's because they lost Hopkins early due to the suspension. Kyler missed some time. Maybe that's the case. Marquise Hollywood-Brown missed some time. But they haven't been very good. And that's disturbing if I am Cardinals faithful of, are we going in the direction we want to go? And I think that's what Michael Bidwell will have to ask himself. Are we going in the right direction? If we are, okay. If we're not, then we're not. And the reason why I bring up the Cardinals is not just that. One of the best pass rushers is J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt announced, or hinted, I should say the word hinted. He didn't announce anything. But he hinted that this is his final year, that he's done after this. He's playing at an unbelievable level, and I respect the fact that he wants to go out on top. I respect that because not a lot of players do. You see a lot of these players are all broken down. They all have hip surgeries at 35, and they should only be getting those surgeries done in their 60s at earliest, and they're getting done at 35 or earlier because they're so beaten up. It's to improve their way of life. Because I'll give you a good example. Nate Newton played for the Dallas Cowboys on that offensive line. That offensive line that became the Great Wall of Dallas had a lot of no names and had a lot of people who were unwanted, but were wanted in Dallas and became the greatest line in Dallas Cowboys history. Well, after he retired, he went and they did an anniversary about 10 year for the 10-year anniversary of the 92-93 Super Bowl years. And this is in '03, I think they did it. And everyone else, the older guys, but they slimmed down, except Nate Newton. He got bigger. He was bigger. And about, I want to say 2008, that might not be correct. He got in liposuction surgery. And he now looks great, even though it's been over a decade since he's had it done. He still looks phenomenal. But you didn't know that if you watched the 2003 ceremony. You didn't know that because he was big, that he was a big man. And he had to have multiple surgeries done because of his size, including the liposuction. J.J. Watt has been through very much similar things, a back injuries, knee injuries. And I saw something yesterday, really surprised me. I had forgot about this. In 2019, the 2019-2020 season, J.J. Watt tore his pectoral muscle. That's normally a 4-month injury. He came back in 2 months, made it in time for the wild card game, and had a sack. I believe this is when they faced the if I remember correctly, this is when they faced the Raiders in the playoffs. But this game was so large that he didn't miss it. And another explain is this year he had a health scare of something was wrong with his heart, and he went to the doctor, and they had to shock his heart back into rhythm, which is actually more common than anyone predicts, but it's shocking because he's a 30-year-old man. He's in his early to mid 30s. He's not really old, but I think that plays into his decision. Plus, he has a son, he has a family. That's the whole thing. You can't afford to lose that because you want to do this. But I respect J.J. Watt for choosing this. I do. I mean, maybe this isn't the end, but maybe at least at this point he thinks it is. It does. People change their minds all the time. You change your mind every day. But I I appreciate what he's done for the game. A definite Hall of Famer. The things that he went and played through is sensational. I would have wanted him to play with his brothers in Pittsburgh, with TJ and Derek. And Tomlin kind of joked about that yesterday, saying, "Oh, I guess we wanted JJ here, but I guess we'll keep Derek around if TJ needs any ligaments." And for people who don't understand, that's just Derek is the fullback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's funny because of Tomlin's lighthearted humor that he would use that. But we are potentially witnessing the final 2 games of JJ Watt's career. Tua Tagovailoa is back in concussion protocol. He suffered a concussion in the game against the Green Bay Packers. The Dolphins lost. He came back into the game, showed no signs of concussion, supposedly. This is going to be an issue for Tua's career, undoubtedly. Tua's got to understand that if you want to play this game, you must learn how to protect yourself. Because if you look at how Tua's concussions are happening, he's not protecting his head. He's trying to keep his head up when he's getting hit. Instead of landing flat, he's keeping his head up, so his head's whacking against turf. And so he's getting concussed because his head's snapping back into the turf. That happened in the first game against Buffalo. That happened in the game against Cincinnati. And that happened in the game against the Packers. He's got to understand if you want to play this game, especially for a long time, you must learn how to do this and how to take that hit without hurting yourself. It's the biggest thing in sports or even in entertainment is learn how to fall properly and to hurt yourself the least amount. You're still going to get hurt, but if you can hurt yourself the least amount and it doesn't affect your brain and mentality, that's the best way you can do it. The Panthers, Derek Brown, who's a big guy, was talking about interim head coach Steve Wilks. In fact, he laid down this little nugget saying, we want Steve Wilks as our head coach permanently, which I kind of figured he'll get. This was a team that was going nowhere. They had no chance at anything. We all thought they were losing in the playoffs if they could even get there. But it was unlikely. You're 1-3 to start the year. You fire your head coach. You have Steve Wilks being the coach, and yet you're competitive. You're still losing some games, but you're competitive. And then you're winning games, and you're beating them because you run the ball with full velocity, and you are playing to your strengths. And I do believe still Steve Wilks deserves another chance because let's face it, he didn't get a fair opportunity when he was in Arizona. He didn't. Maybe giving it to him in Carolina. That highly considered. Because if you look at last year, there's 6 coaches fired. I don't think there'll be 6 coaches this year. There might be 3, and there might be maybe 4. But think about it. Colts, Panthers, Broncos. Those are 3 right there. There could be more. There might be about 4, maybe 5, but 6 is a lot. I look at it this way. That's almost half the league in terms of coaches that were fired this past offseason. I don't see that happening again. Or not half, almost a third, I should say, almost a third of the coaches fired. That's a lot. I don't see that happening again. They'll give people more opportunities. A surprising revelation happened this morning. Before I get into something that before I get into the 2 more shocking things, was Bucs might be getting some reinforcements as center Ryan Jensen has been designated to return. Jensen, in the offseason, actually just before preseason, suffered a knee injury so horrific that it took him 2.5 weeks to figure out what was wrong with him because they figured out he blew out his knee, but they couldn't tell how badly because every time they kept trying to check, it would blow up again, meaning it would swell, and there was no way they could check because they couldn't even really touch it. It took them a couple weeks before they could even figure that out. The fact that he's come back this quickly is nothing short of amazing. There's a lot of injuries this past year that's been the case. The Cowboys' Damone Clark came back from spinal fusion surgery in March. He was playing in the week, I think it was the week 8 matchup between the Cowboys and the Bears. To get something late March and come back in almost beginning in November, that's insane. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't seem logical. And yet he played, and he played well. I'm hoping that Ryan Jensen does play. I want to see what he does, but I also don't want him to hurt himself either. That would be very disappointing. And the Buccaneers do need help on the offensive line. They've been a mess. They don't protect Brady. Brady's been struggling. It's not like I'll say what Chris Collinsworth said. He said Brady's actually his arm still looks really good. Like he still can throw the ball. The problem is they're just not on the same page. None of his guys are on the same page, and that's because they've missed time independently. You got Julio Jones, he missed time with the PCL injury. Um, Mike Evans got suspended the game. Chris Godwin missed time. Your running back and offensive lineup terrible. So if you can get some reinforcements, that would be much needed at this time of the season. Next up, the NFL decided to rescind the suspensions that were against Randy Gregory and the Broncos Rams suspension and the game on Christmas Day, where the Broncos lost so badly, 51-14 would be precise score, that Randy Gregory threw a punch. Now, Randy Gregory's had his issues in the past, mostly with the Dallas Cowboys. He signed with the Broncos as a free agent. They've always discussed his mental behavior, I guess is the best way I can put it, as he's been suspended multiple times for for the for medical marijuana. He's been suspended multiple times for this. He's he can't get suspended for that anymore. He goes, has his best year in Dallas, leaves because him and his agent believe that the Cowboys were lying to them. They weren't, but they believe that. I guess I don't know. They left to go to Denver. He doesn't even play. The Cowboys and Broncos do a scrimmage in which he's not even playing because he injured his shoulder. And yet he's still talking trash. And when the Cowboys were getting angry, he'd back up and allow his teammates to deal with it. So there's just things that he didn't make any sense. And now he's punching a guy for no reason. I don't understand him too much right now. I don't get it. Like comes a point where yes, I know you're having a bad season, and yes, I know you're frustrated, but that doesn't make any sense for you to punch a guy after a game was over. I'm not saying punch the guy when the game is playing. I'm saying it never made sense to me that he would go and make that decision. And I thought, well, good that they suspended him. Good. Because that's the only way he's going to learn. And yet they said, no, we're rescinding it. We're just going to fine him. Like, it's like if you hit someone, if it's like if you go in the street and you punch somebody, you're going to get arrested. They can't just go and say, hey, no harm, no foul. Let's take the handcuffs off you. You're fine. Go. Pay like a $10 fine or a $15,000 fine or something. That's it. Punch somebody for no reason. Doesn't make any sense. Now, I could understand if it happened mid-game, but he hasn't talked about it, maybe because he probably can't. But it doesn't make sense. There's a lot of things going on, and we don't understand why. And finally, especially not understanding why, I am pleading with Instagram right now. Okay, I'm pleading with them. Please ban this guy. What he said was so distasteful and so horrific that he needs to be banned. An Eagles fan, after the loss to the Cowboys on Christmas Eve, direct message Dak Prescott, and this came to light this morning. He direct messaged Dak Prescott saying horrific things. So if you have your kids in the room, cover your ears. He says, I'm happy your mom died. I'm happy your brother died. And I hope your other brother Tad is next. What kind of human says that, by the way? It doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make any sense at all. You that is such a and Dak has talked about it. That's the crazy thing. In 2020, Dak Prescott lost his brother to suicide. In 2016, he lost his mother to cancer. And he talks about how mentally tough he is. But he also says, I struggle with mental health. I struggle with it because of those things. It's hard to comprehend. And instead of people giving him his space, instead of people giving and understanding what he's going through, maybe not even understanding it, but will be polite enough to leave him alone with it and let him get the help he needs. They go and make a big thing out of it. You have Skip Bayless, who I talked about this past Monday, about how their show is a problem. I, he went and said, I can't take Dak Prescott right now. He can't be a quarterback because he is weak. He's not weak. If anything, it's a sign of strength that he went and said what he said. This past week, a report came out from CowboysSI.com saying that they went and talked to Dak, and Dak said, I'm a mentally tough guy. I'm I'm mentally tough at the times that I'm not afraid to talk about it. That's the sign of pure strength, to deal with that whole situation and to be able to go and say, you know what, I'm working on it. That's more strength. But for this guy, this fan, that because your team lost, you have to bring up a guy's history or bring up a guy's family struggles or something that's happened with family members who've passed away. That's just wrong. And that guy deserves to lose whatever he was using. And in this case, it was his Instagram. The fact he direct messaged that to Dak. I don't blame Dak if he doesn't want to talk about it. I don't blame him if he does talk about it. But all I'm saying is Instagram, please ban him. Please ban this fan. Please. Because it doesn't make any sense. And I understand rivalries are important, but this goes beyond rivalry. This is personal. And I hope that ESPN goes, that some place goes and says, we need to talk about this more and deal with this situation as much as we can. Because I brought up Skip Bayless because when he talked about that, the FS1 didn't talk to him about it. He didn't apologize about it. They put a caution at the end of the show and on their platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, saying, our show does not agree with Skip Bayless's comments. But yet you didn't talk to him. You didn't force him to apologize. You just let him go. You you let your dog off the leash and therefore he bit somebody. That's what happened. Like, I don't get it. And you got people who go and say these things that shouldn't even be said at all. They shouldn't even be thought of. Uh, like, who talks that way to go to someone else? That doesn't make sense. And that person deserves to be punished. And I don't know how they'll do it, but they should go say, this person is going to get banned permanently, and he's going to go and apologize. But before we ban him, we're going to make sure he sends something to Dak Prescott or to other people he's done this to, because this is ridiculous. It doesn't make sense of how people can be, or some people can be so moronic that they said, "This is okay, and I'm gonna type it out and send it to him." Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. And therefore, this guy should lose this privilege that he should lose the privilege of using this platform. He should lose it. Period. And I was thinking about it this morning. I was like, this guy should almost be arrested. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to go that far with it, but I'm saying he should apologize and do something about that. Even if it's donating money to a mental health charity. Something. Or a charity that sponsors mental health. Something. Because this was distasteful, horrific, and downright moronic that this person would decide to go and send that to Dak Prescott. Or to anyone who struggles.